Hello and welcome to the Ball Card Show, the sports podcast for the sports collector. I'm Jason Otero, and I'm solo today. It's just me. Wasn't planned. It's your lucky day. You hit the jackpot, Mega Millions. Gary's sick. That's all that's happening. Gary's not feeling well. We run tight windows through our schedule. We're doing shows all the time, whatnot, all this and that. So we just decided, hey, I'll run a solo show today. Gary will be back next week, but we want him to get feeling better. And now you get a whole episode of me, which I know you're very excited about. A lot to jump into today. Some hobby news. I want to dive into a little bit of the National as they've released the autograph list, a little strategy that I'm going to take along with a pro tip you do not want to miss out on. And then today when we take a look at the value box, it's going to be about what would I do if I was starting an eBay store from scratch. So, years later, 50,000 listings up, a high volume, low end store that I'm running on a regular basis. That's a big part of my revenue for my card business. If I was starting that over, what would I do? So we'll take a look at that. Low end liquid as always, but I'm so glad that you're joining in. Hey, before we get started, if you're just now hearing this announcement, you missed the first one. But every Wednesday from noon to 2, Gary and I have launched Lunchbox Lots. We will be running lot singles, nice low-end stuff. So picture the right names, the right stars, rookies, patches, that kind of stuff. Stuff we don't drop in a mag and do on our Thursday night show. We have thousands and thousands and thousands of these cards. So we're going to start doing a midday Wednesday show. Those of you that follow, especially on TikTok when I'm live and doing shipping and you talk eBay a lot, you're always saying, hey, I don't have a place to source low end. This will be a good spot for that. The reason that I'm not doing it is because Gary and I are in the Ball Card Show joint business together, and anything that we bring in through the Whatnot channel, like this stuff, we're going to move together like that as well. So it is stuff that I would typically throw in my store. So if you're somebody that likes doing lots, you like doing Whatnot, but you don't want to blow a ton of money, or you just want to hang out on your lunch breaks on Wednesday, be sure to follow us there. We will have just had our first show. Gary and I will be alternating every other week, so one of us will be on there. And then Thursday night, tonight, if you're watching this as it drops, this is the last week of the buyers giveaway where we are going through the 50 free slabs for buyers of the Whatnot stream. And the case hit is in this one, so I'll just show you a few. There'll be 10 slabs. I counted it up. There is only 1 9. Everything else is a 10 that we're running on Whatnot Thursday night. I'll show you a few highlights here. Brandon Ayuk, neon green die cut, PSA 10. That's a rookie. Sky Moore on the maroon prism to 149 in a PSA 10. That is a rookie. Wimby, mosaic, true, base 10. Brandon Miller, 10 on a PSA. This is a cool card. Scooball on the sky blue foil, first edition in a PSA 10. Baseball collectors know that's a really tough 10 to get. Those surfaces are pretty rough. And then the big, exciting giveaway that we have running this time, this beautiful Adrian Beltre 2023 Transcendent Collection on card, auto to 15. It's almost a $200 card. So this is going to go to somebody. All they did was buy something in the show. It could be a $2 card, could be a $20 card, whatever. But we wanted to give those back. So don't miss out on that. So now with Whatnot, we've got Wednesdays at noon and we've got Thursdays at 7 p.m. When you look for us on Whatnot, it is at the Ball Card Show. At the. People forgetting the can't find us. Just like the Ohio State University National Champs. You know what I mean? It's got a nice ring to it. The Ohio State, the Ball Card Show, at the Ball Card Show. Bookmark it, follow us, hang out in the show. It's been really cool meeting so many of you that have walked up to a table that found us through Whatnot or the podcast, and this last week was no different. Now, I'll tell you, that was the single hottest room I've ever sold cards in Xenia. If you were there last Saturday, just hot, big metal pole barn, no AC. The fans are just blowing hot air around. And Gary and I were in a corner like across from a garage bay. So the sun was kind of beating into the room right on that side. It was a hot, hot day, but it's still a good show. The first time, Gary was the one to initiate leaving early, not me. I'm always all right, I made some money. Let's get home and put our feet up. You know what I mean? But Gary was feeling it this time. It was so hot. There wasn't any water. Everybody bought it all. So Xenia was a great show. Thank you to those of you that walked up and said hey to us. You just found the podcast recently. We love to hear that. And join us on Whatnot. Wednesdays at noon, Thursdays at 7. You see, when Gary's not here, I will ramble. This could be a 30-minute podcast as planned. This could be an hour and a half. You're here for the ride. All right, let's keep rolling with some hobby news. The Topps All-Star Game Mega Box is released. Now, 99% of you don't care about that if you're into bigger cards or bigger chases, this and that, but the low-end people really love this All-Star set. The reason for it is it has been a very liquid product at that price point, and it is a set that people are continuing to build. So as it drops, you are seeing some people try to resell that. They are in a mega format for sure. So they do look really nice. They have their own versions of inserts and subsets, but it's a quick set that people like to build up through the All-Star break. It has just dropped. Topps Chrome release is on July 23rd, so that is right around the corner. We talked last week about the MVP buyback and how Cal Raleigh is not in the checklist. Well, as of this morning, he's the home run derby champ, just like he called it back in the day in his front yard. How freaking awesome is that? If you haven't seen it, Cal Raleigh, there's a home video made from back in the day, and that's how old I am. I just said home video. There's a video of Cal Raleigh when he was a kid singing that he's going to be home run derby champ, or he is the home run derby champ. The point is, he did it with his pops. He put up a bajillion home runs. It was really fun to watch that last night. And I'm especially not mad because I was able to get in on a Cal Raleigh Bowman First Auto a month and a half ago, and it is trending well. So anyway, Topps Chrome releases on the 23rd. Elite Football, July 14th. Meh, not my favorite product. And then Luminance on July 23rd, which for a low-end product, Luminance does have some cool inserts. The visual appeal is there. Not a product that I go buy wax on, but there's some cool stuff in there, some neat hits. I want to touch on just for a moment something that we announced last week. There's been a lot more discussion in the hobby community about this, and I do think it's going to have some significant impacts on the hobby in general. And that is eBay flirting with the idea of extended bidding. Now, I have not seen an official announcement on this yet. It's just been released as an idea. But as I mentioned before, when that happens, eBay tends to already be there, and they're just giving us time to catch up to where their thought process is. After hearing more people discuss this and go back and forth, is this good? Is this bad? I thought I'd break it down in a little more detail to show you how this hobby news might be affecting you. So let's look through the different things that it might mean for eBay to extend bidding. Basically, this means you used to be able to throw in a snipe at the last second, and then you'd wait for the loading bar to finish up, and you'd find out, did you get a good deal on the auction? Did somebody else come in and bid over you? Well, what they're saying now is under 2 minutes left in the auction. If someone bids, it extends the auction for 2 minutes. And you have 2 full minutes to decide if you want to bid again. So what could go wrong? What could go right with this? Well, the first thing that some people are very concerned about is shill bidding. Does this enable shill bidding to go on at a more frequent rate than before and to really carry things into a ridiculous place in the market? I think there's a solid argument for that. Shill bidding will be a little bit easier for people because you could have 10 windows up, a dummy account, and be running that stuff up for another 30, 40 minutes to just see how far you can drive up the price on that. It also will take a little more time as you're trying to manage those bids as well, but it definitely opens the door for that possibility. Shill bidding's never a great thing. Unpaid sales are a horrible thing for the comp market because most collectors, dealers, even people buying cards, like flipping cards, they have a tendency to trust that eBay comp where if they don't have card ladder to verify if it's been paid, they're assuming that high comp is there. So is there a possibility for shill bidding? Yes. However, the trade-off with that is the person that is not shill bidding and bidding on the card has 2 minutes to think about if they want to go further with it. So it doesn't just insta-drive the market up, but there's definitely opening a door for some of that to take place. The other thing that this means, are comps going to be higher? As a general rule of thumb, I think they are. I think comps will raise along with this extended bidding. Why is that? There are a lot of people, especially when you get into a higher price point, maybe not on a $50 card, but if we're talking like a $500 or $600 card, and let's say that you said, I'm not going to spend more than $500 on this, that's my cap. But if you had 2 minutes to think about it, would you actually be at $550? Maybe. The temptation's going to be there at least. Am I really going to let this card slide? It's only $2 over the max that I told myself I would be at. Well, what we don't know is whoever you're bidding against, what's their real number, right? But in general, I think this does raise the overall comp market. Is that a good thing? It's a good question. I'm glad you asked that, Jason. That was weird. See, that's where Gary needs to be here. This is kind of tough. Is it a good thing that these are probably going to raise comps? My initial thought is yes, and here's the reason why. Most auction houses in the world, in most spaces, run on an extended bidding platform. A bid is put in. If you think of the traditional auctioneer, going once, going twice, there's a whole process leading up to make sure nobody else in the room wants the card. With extended bidding, that's still a possibility. You can find out the value. What is the value of a card? What somebody's actually willing to pay. So I do think it raises the overall value of the card market. I think also it has the potential to standardize that comp market as well. If people can see now that these are extended bids that are carrying a card 20% higher, 10% higher, whatever, then that kind of becomes the new baseline. Now, the assumption here is that these aren't all shill bids, that people are paying for their stuff, but those are eBay problems that eBay needs to solve. They've been around. They need to be addressed. I got into a few different conversations with some different repackers, and they brought up a good point that I don't think that most collectors and even card show dealers realize how much of the repack product is sourced on eBay as well. The repackers aren't necessarily needing to buy something at a deep margin because when they go through the product that they have, they just establish here's where the values are. How do we want to build out this next case, right? So there's a lot of buying that's happening there. Many of them and collectors are using sniping softwares where they kind of say, what their top dollar is, and then the snipe softwares will hop in at the last millisecond and try to drop that bid in. Well, now that's not going to work. And when we think about the efficiency side of this for the repacker, that's going to create a headache. Why? Because now you have to pay attention to 10 auctions that are ending or not ending every 2 minutes, and your max bid may not be there. You may be paying up a little more. So I certainly understand that. Why does that matter to me as a dealer? We spoke about this weeks back, that you need to view the space more as an ecosystem. Repacks play a huge role in the success of my business, and I just sell singles. How does that work? Well, the reason for that is they are sourcing so much volume for collectors, breakers, repacks, whatever, that they go to shows. They send people all over the country to buy for them. That money is going from repackers to my table, and they are spending money on cards. If the repack market ended tomorrow, I don't think people realize how much the market would immediately fall. How much the case hit market, especially. Vintage could ride that out probably, but the ultra modern case hit model, it would be really suffering. What would happen to downtowns if there were no repackers tomorrow? What would happen to kabooms? Are they rare enough to stand on their own? Now, a lot of you are saying yes, 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 but I don't know that you realize the volume and liquidity that is being presented because repackers are buying. So this does create a real issue for eBay and the repacker. If it's harder to source inventory, if it takes more time, and now I'm spending more money, there's a chance that's getting passed off to the collector, the person buying the repack, or that's going to be more employees to manage it. If it's a larger scale repack, it's definitely something worth considering. Now, I'm not a repack apologist. There are great repackers out there. There are predatory repackers out there. There are products that are good and ethical, and there are products that are so gamed right now that you might as well head to the blackjack table and just run a stack of chips. It's just the way it is. You might have better odds there. So I'm not speaking for all when I say this, but I do think it's important to notice that this is impacting it, and it's an impact I hadn't quite considered until I saw some of the influencers in the hobby addressing that. So I just want to point out they're making some good points in saying this will affect repackers, and not necessarily in the most positive way. The trade-off for that is if their comps are now going to be higher, then the inventory they currently have may get a boost over the next few months, although if we're being honest, a successful repacker can never have enough stuff. They need so much inventory, and it's a constantly revolving door. But that also means that some of the cards that, may not quite be a floor card in 6 months might be considered in that floor value. So The extended bidding is going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. I think it's good because collectors have a longer chance and opportunity to buy a card that they're really looking for. I think it's good because it can standardize comps when we're talking about verified sales. I think for people that are dealers at card shows, I'm really hopeful, and there's no guarantee with this, but I'm hopeful that this extended bidding platform would help a little bit to standardize comp price points. The game that you always play as a dealer at a show, somebody walks up, you have a card with 10 comps at $100. There's one comp in the last 3 months at $70. You know how that story goes, right? If the extended bidding, at least on eBay, could shrink that down a little bit, that might be helpful for people collecting, buying, selling, but there's no guarantee with that. I think there are some bad things. I think it's easier to shill. I think an auction could, in theory, just never be paid for and could be running. In theory, there's nothing to stop the auction. And there are people that are going to be able to build out bots and stuff that can really take advantage of this and just drive that market up. And if people don't understand what a verified sale means or a paid sale and how it shows up in these different aggregates, it could be a problem for a lot of people. And I think another thing is sourcing just gets harder for repackers and dealers to some degree. Now, I don't ever buy off of eBay for sourcing at a card table because those are the comps that are there. So if I'm buying at a margin, I just set the new comp. But for those that use that as a sourcing platform, that's going to be a challenge for them. So we'll keep a closer eye on this. Who knows for sure that it happens, but it sure seems like it's heading that way. eBay extended bidding there. So here in just a second, I want to talk about, before I take a sip of my coffee here, the national show is coming right up, and they just released their autograph list, and there's some names to mention in there and a little strategy that I'm going to have, that I'm going to take here. But I need my cup of coffee. I'm going to start coughing here. I finally went to the doctor. They got me the steroids, the inhaler, all this stuff to just get rid of this cough I've had for what seems to be a month now. National Card Show's coming up. The autograph list was just released. Gary and I are getting excited. Whenever you get close to the National, it's so much fun. You're trying not to think about it every day. And it's a reminder for me, like, I'm so glad I took the leap because this is not a vacation. This is actually me doing my job. It's one of those weeks where you're like, I'm so glad that I put in all that time working this space because I'm technically on a work trip. Now, I've been to work trips before. They weren't always fun. This is going to be a blast. So, autograph list is released. I just want to highlight a few of the first-time appearance people at the National. Some of your regulars are going to be there. Your Bo Jackson, Tony Perez, a lot of the names that you see on a regular basis. The Fridge will be there. Earl Campbell has signed more autographs than anybody I've ever known. All those familiar faces will be there, but I want to highlight a few that are doing national signings for the first time. I think it's a pretty cool list. First off, this is going to be a big one. We're in Chicago. I can't imagine how long the line is going to be. PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong, will be signing. I believe he was around the $200 mark for just a regular autograph. That line will be long, but tickets are available for that. Miguel Cabrera, Adrian Beltre, Yadi Molina. Now, Yadi is over $300 a pop for a regular auto. That's up there. That is up there. I think Bo Jackson was just over $2. Now, Yadi is very loved. He has a very devout PC base. I could see him demanding a premium, honestly. It's the first time out. But $300, you better really want that auto for that. Terrell Suggs, Anquan Bolden, James Harrison, Giannis Antetokounmpo. And it seems like he said, if I'm coming, all of my siblings will be there. All the Antetokounmpos are signing for the National. Patrick Ewing, I thought that was pretty sweet. First time signing of the National. Rick Pitino, Cheryl Miller, Diana Taurasi are both signing for the first time at the National. And from the UFC, one of my favorite fighters from back in the day, Matt Hughes, will be signing there. So I am typically not a autograph person. And the reason for that is that I despise lines. I hate them. Amusement parks are one of my least favorite places, not because rides aren't fun, but because we voluntarily agree to hemorrhage money to stand in the sun on top of blacktop, 95 degrees, in turnstiles as if we're livestock, sweating and smelling each other in a line for 2 hours for 45 seconds of fun. I've just described to you every trip to the amusement park, and anything that reminds me of that makes me grow very impatient. This will be no different. Autograph lines for me, when I know that there's all these tables out there, I could be out on my own, I could go explore, do what I want, find cool cards, go to the trade floor, whatever. But there is one auto I want to get this year, and I'm going to get the ticket this week. Now, a reminder to you, tickets do sell out. So if you're interested in one of those names that's a first-time appearance, you may want to hop on the website. You can purchase your ticket ahead of time, but they will sell out at a certain point. But I have been working on the 1969 top set for like over a year now. There'll be a month or two where I'm adding to it, and then a couple months where I don't. One thing I'm trying to do is do something unique with all the stars. I'd like a high grade on each, 6 or better. And in some cases, that's going to be tough to do. So in the meantime, last week I picked up this 1969 Johnny Bench. It's fairly well centered. I don't think this is going to 6 if it's sent off for a grade, but it could be close. It might be a 5. It has an argument for it. But this is a card that I think is actually worth autographing. It's iconic. It's vintage. It is second year for Bench. And it's a lot of times the picture that the image that most people think of, because his rookie card was that dual, landscape. So it's one of his more iconic cards. There are cards where it will not make sense value-wise, if we're going from that approach, to get signed. I can think of very few Pete Crow Armstrong cards that are pack-pulled, that there is a significant value add at $200 for the autograph. It's just going to be tough for it to do that for the card. It would have to be unique. And again, we're talking something that's been made in the last couple of years. So does the auto really add that much value to the card? Maybe. But when you start talking about the vintage space and you're talking about Hall of Fame icons like Johnny Bench, that's a different story. So there are spaces where getting an autograph is actually a great value add to the card. This card raw in this condition, you can make the argument for 125 on the low end. You could probably push it to 200 or a little better. It is pretty clean. It's got sharp edges. It's pretty well centered. Surface has a little bit of fading as I'm looking at it here. But 200 is top of the market on that card. However, take a minute to look up what a graded autograph of an authentic 69 Johnny Bench is. And you'll be surprised to see that it's a lot more than the $137 it costs to get that Johnny Bench autograph. There are certain cards where it actually is a tremendous value add to get that autograph. So I think I'm going to do that with the Bench. I'll be in $130 on that. I paid up on the card, but I bought it in a lot of a collection just 2 weeks ago, where I averaged down on the cost, but I will more than 1.5x the current value of this card after the expense of the autograph. So take a look at that. The play, if you're looking at vintage players' autographs, is likely get one that has good presentation. It doesn't need to already be, I wouldn't recommend cracking a card that's a 9, getting an autograph, taking on all that risk to resubmit it. That's not the game I would play, but I would try to find a presentable, authentic vintage card, and an iconic one if possible. I mean, it's not a cheap card, right? It's pretty iconic, and see what happens when that card goes from being an authentic slab to an authentic graded autograph. Even an auto 9, some of them will do very, very well for you. So something to think about. I never thought I'd talk about being in the lines at the National for autographs. That is definitely not where I like to spend my time. But in this case, it'll be an honor to meet Mr. Bench, and it's definitely an auto that I want to have. So I think I'm going to go ahead and pick that one up. Also, National Pro Tip for this week. I can't wait to show you guys this. There'll be more conversation next week. Gary and I'm sure we'll walk through like some do's and don'ts, some tips for the National if it's your first one out. But I have one that you just simply cannot pass up, especially if you spend time digging through boxes. Now, if you're a showcase-only person, this will not apply to you. However, Gary and I did a little digging last year. We talked about it. Now we have video, so I get to show it to you. I introduced to you the Fat Man expandable stool. Look at this. Look at this. Are you seeing this? Now, I'm going to answer the question you may be having. What is the weight limit on that? And that's a fair question to ask. And a rule that I live by is whatever it says the weight limit is, I divide that by 2 because I've destroyed furniture in front of my friends before, and it's not something I plan on doing at the National in front of everyone that collects and watches the podcast. But these little collapsible stools are awesome for the National. They don't take up a ton of space. I can still fit my rolling bag in front of me while I'm digging, and it will save your back a lot. Now, these are not the most comfortable things. So if you're feeling froggy, right? Look at that. I could do that all day for you guys on video. If you happen to be living large and have an excess amount of money, you may want to upgrade to the padded version. Now, quick qualifier, this does not really stay in place. You need to mind the pillow, but that little pillow makes a difference at the end of the day. That has been your National Pro Tip for the week. Expandable stool, camping stool, a lot of different names for it. Go up on the weight limit. Go up on the weight limit. Don't go down. Even if you save a couple bucks, it's not worth it. Divide the weight limit by 2. That's the math. That's how it works out. I can verify that. And I never trust a chair. So can't say enough about those guys. That's a big help if you're digging through there. All right. Let's talk value box. I was talking with Gary. This was kind of a last-minute audible where it just made more sense for us to record this just solo this week with how he's feeling. We need to get him back and well for Thursday night, Saturday show, and a bajillion other things that we have going on. So I want to talk about eBay because it's kind of the wheelhouse and a lot of the content that I talk about. What would I do if I was starting eBay from scratch tomorrow? If I was starting my store tomorrow, what would I do? Probably the biggest, the highest volume of questions that we get, especially on our TikTok audience, is all revolving around setting up the eBay store. How do you run it as a business? What should I be doing as I get started? And I'd just like to kind of do a quick overview. And even if you've been doing this for a while, there were some things that I wrote down where I was a little surprised, like, oh, I haven't been thinking about that. I definitely need to apply that more right now, and it's going to help me. So I think it would help you even if you've been pretty well established in the eBay space for a while. But if I was starting an eBay store tomorrow, there's some filters that I would have. I'm going to move this so I can read it a little better. The first thing that I would try to think about is, and now I have this experience, but what are the biggest potential hurdles I'm going to have to starting or scaling this business? So for me, I know that I am naturally disorganized, and so I will need to focus on systems. What's funny about this is if you talk to Gary, you would hear him say over and over, I'm obsessed with systems, obsessed with efficiencies. It's not that I enjoy them. It's that I have found that for me, while I excel in other things, this is a weak spot for me. So that's kind of my secret sauce. How can I do things as efficiently as possible? And how can I set it up so it will make sense in 30,000 cards, just like it will with my first 300 cards that I get up on eBay? So that's kind of the filter that I have with this. If I had to start a store from scratch, what are the biggest hurdles? What's really going to depend on your model. So one of the first questions I would have for you is, what are you wanting to sell? Now, when I first started selling on eBay, there were actually 2 windows of this. Back in the day, I was actually a pastor for 11 years in Ohio, in the Columbus area, before I went on to other things. But as I was doing that, we were running on a pastor's budget. And one of the things I did, just like everybody else in the early 2000s, is I went to college because you have to go to college or you're going to ruin your life, right? That was the narrative. And they're giving away money and it's free. Sally Mae is awesome. You just sign this, get all the stuff you need. And yeah, they just set you up with a payment plan and you just, you'll pay it back. And at that time they were advertising 10 years later, you'll have it paid off, right? Anybody that's around my age, I was born mid 80s, which I found there's a title for this. I think it's something like geriatric millennial. Like I identify more with Generation X because we were like low tech in my family growing up until like middle school, high school. But I don't quite identify with millennials that everyone had a cell phone. Like I didn't have one until college. And that wasn't uncommon. There was just a few kids in the high school that had a cell phone. And then later on, all that came through. But that's completely irrelevant to what I'm talking about at this moment. And I don't even know why I said that. It will all depend on your model. So what kind of stuff do you want to put in the store? I would focus, if I was starting over again, on this word collectability. Whatever your price point is, I would focus on collectability. Why is that? A lesson I've learned in the last year, it's been 14,000 orders on eBay. is that collectability will drive consistent repeat buyers to my store more than volatility. Now, before you start pushing back, let me finish my thought here. The reason I say that is a volatile market can leave people feeling two different ways. So it is great when somebody buys a card that I've listed a month ago and all of a sudden that player skyrocketed and they've gone off and they're doing great. However, it's also very possible, if I focus on the highly volatile market, that I'm selling a card and by the time it arrives at the buyer's house, it's dropped 20% in value and now they're feeling like they got a bad deal from me. Whether it's my fault or not, it's not an instant exchange like it is at a card show. So I want to have buyers that feel good about what they purchased. They're like, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I've been looking for. And you have a lot of the type of stuff I like. I focus on collectability. So what does that mean? It can be low end, it can be mid end, it can be high end, but it's focusing on things that people want, the end user. Repackers don't buy from me. I don't have the stuff that they want. I have the stuff that's like, man, I've been looking for that card for 10 years. Even if it's a $5 card, $10 card, $20, could be a $500 card. But it's something that is a little bit unique. There's something about it that people will want to collect it. So that would be my first filter. Not just what is it comp for? What can I get it for? When I started out, it was where are all the $3 cards that I can get for 10 cents? I tried to focus on that. And while that model works, if I'm not focusing on the liquidity, collectability, desirability of the card, those $3 cards may be worth $3, but the buyer's going to show up once every 5 years. I probably have over 10,000 cards like that in the store. I didn't realize that as I was listing them. And now with all these reps later, I can see that, man, I was listing stuff that may have had a comp at some point, but nobody's looking for it. You got it, but nobody's looking for it. Have you ever been to a card shop like that? Like you drive by, hole in the wall. Oh, that's a cool spot. You go in. They have a lot of unique things, stuff you don't see every day, but it's stuff that nobody really wants. You go back a year later to visit family, same inventory, same stale stuff, still unique, still has a comp there, but nobody's collecting it. So I would focus in on collectability first. Now, you can do that at different price points, and I kind of want to talk through that. I focus on low end with my eBay store. Then I focus on typically like emphasizing $50 to $500 to $1,000 in my showcase inventory. So two very different types of price points. And then I'll have usually a value box and stuff under $50 that I set up at shows with make up for about 20 to 25% of my total inventory. So it's not very much. When you focus on low end, there's some huge advantages on eBay. The first is this. It is tremendously easy to source. Now, I know some of you are saying, no, it isn't. I'm trying. I see that you have this low-end, high-volume store. How are you finding all this stuff? I assure you, if you make a priority of looking for inventory, you will find it. If you haven't seen it yet, last week we did a whole episode highlighting sourcing. And so go back and watch that. But I'm telling you right now, I am able to consistently walk to a card show with a few $100, and I can walk away with a 4-row box of really good eBay inventory. It may average down to a penny a piece, 10 cents, 25 cents a piece max. But if I'm paying a quarter, I'm probably getting $3 to $5 a piece out of those cards. So when you're willing to spend a few $100, you're looking for a table of somebody who has all the other stuff and there's just a value box there that they don't seem to be too interested in. Maybe they didn't even price it. Hey, you ever thought about selling the box? So forth. You can buy collections. I can buy a full collection and I have all of the nice stuff going in my showcases, like collection I picked up there, with the Johnny Bench. But I could also have 3 or 4 boxes in that collection where there's just a bunch of low-end stuff. I have a way to process that now. I can go through it, build a stack out. So sourcing is much easier. The margins, percentage-wise, are exponentially easier on the low-end market. But the trade-off is this. It is going to be a slower drip for you. So if you want to do low-end, you can have a low-end store. You can make money on it, but you can't do a low-end store with 300 cards and be frustrated that you're only selling 10 cards on a weekend. If you want to do low-end, you have to do it at scale if you're focused on the business side of this. Now, if this is just you doing it for fun, do whatever you want. Ignore everything I'm saying. If you're doing this as a way to generate income and to treat it as a eBay store or business, you really are going to have to focus on getting to a point of volume. I didn't notice significant income from this. When I mean significant, I mean, wow, that's generating more income than I expected. on a regular basis till about 20,000 cards were in the store. Now, it was kicking over money, but it would be this much this week, this much the next, this much this week, and then I uploaded stuff I thought was good, but it was terrible. And I put 1,000 of those in the store. They're not collectible just because they had a few comps that were high 20 years ago, right? So you really have to focus on volume if you're going to go with the low-end stuff. Now, once it's scaled, you kind of have a rinse and repeat model. That's where I'm at right now. However, the low end requires tons of labor. Do you know how long it takes to go through a 5,000 card collection and pull them all out of top loaders just to prepare them to scan? Or what about those people you buy a collection from and they decide to sticker the penny sleeve and not the top loader? Great that they don't stick in the box, but now you're having to pull them out of the top loader, pull them out of the penny sleeve. Do the math on that. It's a lot more time than you think it is going to take. Do you know how long it takes to scan 2,000 cards in, identify them, rotate every image, and make sure that they're correct? And then listing. Your listing software might work really well. There's incredible tools like Card Dealer Pro. I use a Ricoh 8170 scanner. Shout out to you guys. Reach out to me. Give me money. I'm your sponsor. You just don't even, or I'm your ambassador. You just don't even know it yet. But there are ways to scale that, but there's a ton of labor. I spend way more time shipping than I'd ever like to admit to you guys. You know, Gary is surprised by it, and it's starting to get to a point where it is starting to impede on my abilities to make some other moves in the card space. So I've got to figure that out. With the low-end market, scale is super important. Sourcing is much easier. Low to mid-range. Margins are still not bad. You're still able to source this stuff, find it, because it's at a price point where most people will work with you. 30% on a $10 card doesn't sound so bad. It's easier to get 40% off. A lot of stuff under $20, you can get 50% off if you buy 2 or 3 things. So imagine you go with a few $100, save up a few $100, sell a few cards at a time from your eBay store, and just put all that money in an account. Then when you're ready to go source, try to bulk buy and get down to a cost average per card that makes sense for you for your model. It's not as bad. Shipping could be a little bit of an advantage. So when you do low end, high volume, the business model really only makes sense, in my opinion, on stuff under $20 to do eBay standard envelope. While that is a program that for the most part works, it does have failures in it. And if you're targeting multi-quantity orders like I do, whenever an order goes south, that might represent 10, 20, 30 orders. Last week, I had one person that bought 130 cards. I had one person that bought 70 cards. The next day, somebody bought 40 cards. The next day, somebody bought 30. So in all those cases, I have to upgrade to ground advantage, priority, whatever. But if you have 10 to 15 cards, those could hit your metrics if it doesn't get there. There is a PIP claim. There's a third-party insurer that will refund you if a card is lost. You take care of the customer. However, you get enough of those, it will slow down your sales. eBay doesn't advertise that, but it is the truth. They are tracking item not received cases that have been opened. Whether they've been delivered or not, eBay tracks that metric. So something to be mindful of. Customer service is a huge piece of this too. If you want to do the low end because it's a lower price point of entry, there's better margins. You can scale it and kind of rinse and repeat, right? Like you got a model that works for you. That's really good. But customer service is going to be a headache for you. Do you know how many people want to buy a card listed at $1.99 free shipping for $1.50? They're out there among us. They are looking for the cheapest possibility. And I'm telling you, when you say near mint, they're expecting to grade that out at a 9, whether that's realistic or not. They're expecting that to at least be a 9. And so if you're going to go with that model, something to consider. Do I have the right personality and temperament to be quick to refund, be quick to apologize, be quick to take responsibility for things that aren't your fault, but technically they're your responsibility if the customer's unhappy? If you don't like doing that, stay away from the low end. Because I have found a correlation between the person trying to get it as cheap as possible and their willingness to leverage anything that's not exactly what they were expecting for a free $1.50 card. Trust me, it's happening every week. Now, usually you give them a refund, it goes away. You take care of the customer. You get a good review, but you are going to have a few negative reviews out there as a result of it. High volume, higher probability, more sales, more likelihood of having a bad review. So low end. Huge multiplier on margins, huge multiplier on labor required to do the job. Mid-end market, The low to mid end, now you can do like at a price point, maybe you're starting at 10 to $50, right? And at $10, if I'm buying a $10 card, I don't feel like you charging me $4 for shipping is that crazy. $5, now we're doubling the cost to get the card. But 10 to $50, you can still get it at margin. Shipping is going to be a little bit easier for you because the tracking is more accurate with Ground Advantage and Priority than it is with standard envelope. But sourcing will be a tiny bit more challenging than the low end. I've thought many times if I was doing this over, I would probably target at a minimum that $7 to $10 range. But I've got to tell you, I can't even tell you how many thousands of cards I never thought would sell have sold because of the collectability of the player or the set. And so I would have missed out on a lot of revenue on stuff I got for a penny a piece if I hadn't at least tried that. But with that low to mid end, you're able to get your margins. Your shipping is a little bit less of a headache. You are buying more interesting things. And so sourcing can be a little bit more fun at that price point, and you're still able to target that multi-quantity order where it makes sense for you to offer a discount because you can still buy it cheap enough. People will shop around and buy a few cards rather than one. Now, once you move up to that mid-range, that changes a little bit for you. Sourcing is going to get a lot harder. Remember, 15% thereabouts comes right off the top from eBay. It's like 12.5. By the time they give you all the other fees they're not talking about, if you do 2% promoted listing or whatever, you're at about 15%. So now you got to buy at 70% to make 15% profit. So you really need to target a little better than that, or you'll have to have tons of it for it to make sense for you. So as we go up in value, the margins change. So be considerate of that. Not so much with what you have, but what you will need. Some of you that don't do eBay have got to have your eyes like glossed over watching and listening to this, and I respect that. Gary will be back next week, but I'm nerding out here. Just stay with me. That sourcing will get a little bit more challenging for you, but the margins are something you really need to pay attention to. If I was starting over, one of the biggest things I didn't think about, and I know it seems silly, but I was sitting on a lot of inventory sprinkled in that was at that mid-range, was maybe that $300. I had probably 200-300 cards right off the rip that may have gone for $50 to $300 that were in the store. Over the first 3 months, the 95% of what sold for me was in the low end $2 to $4 stuff. However, a huge portion of my revenue came from cards I already had that were at a higher value. Now that's great. Nothing wrong with that. But 3 months from when I started my store, I was looking around saying, I don't have anything. Why are my sales so much lower? I'm packing more envelopes than before. And it's easy to forget that what you started with may have been a little more juicy on the inventory front than what you were able to resource. So you need to think through that. A learning curve for me was, all right, I don't have as much good stuff, so I need to buy a lot more, and I need to double the amount of time I'm spending listing. And when I tell you, there was a lot of days I would start in my basement at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I was running late into the evening doing listing just to get that count up so that the volume made sense. But it's something you need to think about. Mid-range cards, when volatility helps, it's a really good thing. When volatility hurts you, it's a really bad thing. You will lose your margins right away. I don't want to buy mid-range cards at 70% and list them on eBay, especially ultra-modern rookies. Like, it's not at a price point where it's a super unique, valuable card. And it's at one where an injury or underperforming 1 week to the next could drastically, if it drops 10%, now I'm making 5% on the card. And I still have to deal with eBay. I still have to deal with the customer. I still have to deal with cancellations. I still have to list it. I still have to ship it. So it's something you have to think through. Now, on the high-end market, there are some things that are really unique about it. A high-end market card, a really unique piece, you actually do get to set the market. There are people that say that all the time in our TikTok threads, and they're talking about Jaden Daniel base PSA 10s. You are not setting the market with that. Anything that there's a bajillion of, you are not setting the market by putting your sticker at 40% over the last 10 comps. You can say that. You could be more honest and just tell the truth. You overpaid for the card. Somebody told you have to buy cards at 95%, and then you can mark them up and get what you want, but it's only fair to the seller at 95%. And now you're realizing that just doesn't work as a business model. You get to set the mark with the really unique stuff. The market. If I had some really high-end stuff from a new product, I do think eBay is a good spot for it. But you better drop that auction right after the release of the card within that first couple weeks. Have a shorter scale auction on that and make sure it ends at a desirable time of day and maybe the weekend, whatever it is. Do some research. Where are the highest auctions going? And I'm sure AI or ChatGPT or whatever can help you out with that. But that's an advantage of the high-end market. The trade-off is you're spending a lot of money, and if I was starting over, I still wouldn't jump into this space. There's too much volatility and too much risk, in my opinion, to start an eBay store from that model. It's just a model that would never make sense to me. So what would I do? So think through what type of inventory you have and what you want to source. You'll find that there are different cards that make more sense for eBay than others. I grabbed a few here that I'll show you real quick. These are some that I picked up this week at a local store. Now, these are going to go out on my showcase this week, maybe 2 weeks, and then they probably end up on eBay. But they're cool enough where somebody might want it. So I'm going to show you why these are good candidates for eBay. And I think every one of these are cool cards. But they may perform better on eBay than they ever would at a show for me. Here's the first one I would show you. This is a Upper Deck Evolve with LaDainian Tomlinson rookie patch to 300. Now, saying that to you sounds like, oh, it's a no-brainer. It's a LaDainian Tomlinson rookie patch. It's numbered. To 300 in the early 2000s is actually a pretty low-numbered card, right? We don't have to question game used. So it's something that in a conversation makes sense. But you tell me right now, does this card pass the eye test for you when you're walking through a showcase? I love it. But if you're being honest, yeah, it's cool, but it's not shiny like a lot of the other stuff. This is about a $30 card where I price it. Now, almost everything that I have here have little to no comps. All right? So that's another reason why it might be a challenge for me to sell this. I know it's rare. I know it's collectible. And I know he has a market. How many of those people are in the Central Ohio area looking for lower-end, short-printed, numbered patches? I don't know that many. All right, up next. This is maybe the coolest one. I was talking with Gary about this yesterday. Picked this up at the LCS in the area that I do a good bit of shopping with. So this is 2017 certified cuts, Kenny Galladay. It's an auto. It's a rookie, and it has a laundry tag patch in it. But it's not numbered. But there's something about this that's a little unique. As I start diving in, I can't find one that looks like this one anywhere. Now, I'm a nerd. I enjoy diving into this. I'll call Gary. We'll talk. Man, what do you think about this? I haven't seen this card before. So I did what I recommend to a lot of you. I went to Cardboard Connection. I looked up the checklist, and I started doing a deep dive. It turns out this is actually a short print green cut auto, and those are numbered to 1. They're not numbered, but there's only one of them. It's a short print to 1. So in a sense, this is a 1-of-1 RPA Kenny Galladay. Not a massive market. Do I think there are Kenny Galladay collectors that are going to be at the show this weekend? Not likely. Possible. Do I think eBay is full of people that probably are trying to look for stuff this unique and build out a set? Now listen, what makes this collectible? A lot of you are going to say, oh, it's a short print to 1. It's an RPA. It's Kenny Galladay, which there were a few years where he was really well loved by the Detroit fan base. I think it's the set. The set is what's going to make this collectible. 2017, let's think through that rookie class. Loaded rookie class. The rookie class, right? 2017 was insane. There are probably a lot of people that search this set for the cut autos. And eBay is where I would find the premium on this card. So this will go in the showcase this week, but it probably ends up on eBay next week. I'm showing you more of that low to mid-range stuff here. A lot of what my bread and butter is not this nice at all. And I'm not saying these are big cards. I'm just giving you examples here. Here's another one. Freddie Freeman, 2015 Prism. Now, I think this is technically the orange refractor, numbered to 60. I can find no comps on this. It is unlicensed. It is Freddie Freeman, and it is actually a pretty cool design for that year, and it is numbered to 60. My gut tells me I could sell that this week, maybe, but I could definitely sell this quickly on eBay. Here's the last one I want to show you. Mike Piazza. What year is this? So this is Donruss. This is the playoff, 2004. This is a game-used patch from the All-Star game. and it's numbered to 50. Mike Piazza. So we've got a card where it's not a normal, like the jersey swatch is a little different. Definitely not the team colors anybody's familiar with, but it's numbered to 50 in 2004. That's a very low numbered card, and there are no comps on it. So this is a situation where eBay, I would get to set the market on this card. This could be an auction card. My gut tells me it's nothing crazy. I might get $20 out of it, but because of the collectability of him, because of the collectability of early 2000s game used patches, the fact that it is numbered and it's unique to the All-Star game, I wouldn't be surprised if there's somebody out there that collects All-Star game patches because they're different than everything else. Do you see how that's a different filter from this Brock Bowers is selling for $20, so I'm going to try to get it for $12 and list it because there's value there, right? These are a little more collectible, which means I'm targeting the end user. And that means you get to charge the top of the market for the end user. They're not necessarily interested in flipping the Piazza or the Freddie Freeman unlicensed orange, prism to 60, right? They probably just want the card. The green cut, they're building the set. Collectability is a whole different thing from does it seem to be selling quickly right now. So that would be a filter that I really want you to consider. So if I was starting over, here's some things I would do. I would set criteria for what I want in the store, and I wouldn't vary from it. I wouldn't let anyone talk me into what I should buy. I've done that too many times, and I've overpurchased, overpaid, or put myself in a situation where I had to overwork for the next 3-4 weeks before I could even process enough stuff to get half of that money back. I parked money for way too long. So I would stick to my metrics. Here's what I'm looking for. I'm sorry, I don't want that. Well, you have to take it with you. Then you're going to have to give it to me. If I'm taking all that stuff too, you have to give it to me. I'll haul it away, but I really have no use for that stuff, right? I would have a more realistic understanding of the time commitment if I was starting tomorrow. If you want to do this as a business, it's going to take a ton of time. I am just now experiencing the scale and volume of the store at almost 50,000 listings. And that's me targeting low end. If you're doing mid to high end, that probably is a completely different metric for you. But I would have a more realistic understanding of the time commitment. This is going to take a lot more time and work than I would expect. I would be more comfortable saying no to certain buys. I actually am priding myself in when I say no and walk away from a deal, especially a bulk deal, I know I did the right thing there. I don't ever regret doing that. There's always more cards out there. Super unique stuff may be different, but that's how I approach this. I would focus in even more on efficiency. Shipping, storage, customer service. It is a now problem, not a when I have more cards, I'm going to figure it out. Why? Because you're going to have to do it at some point, and if you don't set that up for success on how you store your cards, how you pull your orders, how you ship your cards, do you know the weight of a number 10 envelope and what weight of copy paper you're doing, and do you use top loaders? Do you team bag them? Do you use painter's tape or like you actually have to think through this. What do those cost? How much money are you spending on shipping supplies? All of those things matter. How do I respond to customer service quickly and efficiently? How do I convert a bad feedback into a positive feedback? How do I set this up to incentivize people to buy more than one card in my store so that they'll actually spend some time shopping there, which in turn will create repeat customers? Efficiency is something you want to address now. The other thing I would do is I would design my store and stick to categories. Like I would do my own categories within the store and make sure I assign listings there. I quit doing that around 20,000 listings. I totally regret it. The amount of time it would take for me to go back and do that again is insane. I may take the project on at some point, but it does help people that are buying in quantity to search for what they want and spend a little bit more money. I wish I would have done that. My store design is horrible. If you go to my store, you'll see the metrics look great. The numbers are there. The cards are fine, but my graphics suck. My layout is not good. Like it's not appealing. That's something I would have spent a little bit of money on, just had somebody design. I probably need to do that soon. I just haven't made a priority of it. When I think about sourcing, I would think bigger. So if I would have realized, hey, there is a way to pay a nickel or less a card, but you have to save up a little more and you have to say no to more of these other purchases so that you have that bigger chunk of cash when the right deal comes along, I would be so much further ahead with my eBay store. But thinking bigger with sourcing, like I can drive further than I thought. I can spend a little bit more than I thought if I can get in quantity. I would attack sourcing very differently. I had a scarcity mindset when I started of there's just not enough. I've only got 500 items in the store. I need more. I'm out of cards. What am I going to do? I got to go buy more. I'm digging through every dime box, dollar box, stressed out. I would have slowed down, got up enough cash, a few $100, go into the local card show and start working until I can find that deal, until I get better at it. Maybe I get told no the whole first show, but eventually I'm going to figure out how to sell that to someone. The convenience of me taking it all right now. The fact that they can immediately take that cash and buy 2 or 3 cards at margin from their table and let those cards pay off that difference over the next 2 months compared to them slowly bleeding out this box $3 at a time at a show. Right? So there's ways to talk about that, ways to pitch it. I would definitely focus on that a little bit more. I would have started putting myself out there much sooner to dealers in the area, LCSers, collectors, and let them know, hey, I'm building this store. I'm scaling it. I have a goal of being at 60,000 liquid low-end cards. And if you ever get a collection and you have bulk that you just really don't have anything to do with, which you would be amazed at how often that happens with an LCS. People think that they do that with all their stuff. The dumpster's probably full of bulk. There's so much stuff they're buying that they don't, like they have to take it, but they don't need it. I would have started building those relationships much sooner. I'm now in a situation where listeners to the podcast, dealers at shows, people from an LCS, when I walk in, they may call me, whatever. Hey, I have something you might be interested in. There's a couple boxes, hey, here's the number on everything, knowing what I'm looking for and the price point. I would have started putting myself out there way sooner to take the risk of being rejected at the possibility that at some point somebody's going to say, hey, this guy's really grinding. And I would tell you that's probably what made the difference. My gosh, 55 minutes. I told you. I'm going to yap. We're almost there. What else? eBay. The thought of eBay. So I've spent so much energy in the first year loving and hating eBay. Having so much, first year of just doing a card-only store. I spent so much time frustrated with eBay because there are times where they really let the seller down. They really do. But the more that I sell cards, the more that I realize there is no other platform in the world right now available to move through a store of 50,000 low-end cards. Now, live selling is starting to put a dent in that, but it doesn't have anywhere near the market reach. I can sell a 1990 junk wax Hall of Famer to someone on the other side of the globe, and it costs me 69 cents to ship it to the international hub. You cannot do that on Whatnot. You can't do that anywhere else. So if I was starting over, I would need to have the right perspective. This works because eBay works. No matter how bad I want eBay to do things this way or do that way, if I was doing an eBay store over, I would focus on what makes the customer happy and what makes eBay happy. And my happiness in how that works is behind all of those things. Because what I've learned is the happier that eBay is, the happier I am and the happier customers are. I would dive in way more on what are the metrics that eBay is looking for. Quick shipping, quick refunds, resolving negative feedback as soon as possible. Listing daily, printing out the shipping sheet daily, even if it's over the weekend. Print it Friday morning, print it Saturday morning, print it Sunday morning, collect them all, make sure it goes out Monday. I would have shorter windows. The more you focus on doing the things that eBay cares about, there is a magic correlation here between that and the algorithm rewarding you with more customers, more traffic. And these are metrics you'll be able to, your click-through rate, your traffic, it'll show you your organic reach, all of that in the dashboard. But I would have just bit the bullet, humbled myself and said, hey, look, eBay is still king. I am selling through them. I don't have this opportunity without eBay. It's the truth. And if I want to be successful, I need to figure out how to get with the program and what works for them. Now, I'm still going to be myself. I'm still frustrated when standard envelope fails me for 10 orders. And I'm still frustrated when tracking shows delivered and the customer hasn't received the card. And we're both at a loss right there. I'm still frustrated when I do the right thing, refund customers, and it's a negative metric for me. But at the end of the day, there's no other way that I could sell all these cards like I do other than eBay. So those are some ramblings and thoughts, things that I would reconsider if I was starting over on eBay. I am almost out of a voice, but I'm not done yet because, as always, we are going to deliver low-end liquid. Now, I cannot remember if I discussed this, but I do not believe I did. If I did, fresh reminder, This is me also speaking it into existence. Like Cal Raleigh spoke the Home Run Derby into existence. I am right now for Low End Liquid speaking the new release of Topps Chrome Platinum Anniversary. None of us have heard anything about it. There's not been a word about it. We're nervous it's not going to happen, but it always drops a little later in the year. But that is going to be our Low End Liquid for the day today. Topps Chrome Platinum Anniversary. Now, what would I target in there? So, first off, I'm just going to say this. Hands down, when it comes to a value buy for wax, I would say that this has held up for me as being consistently good value on the low end all the way through the hits. The reason for that is it usually has a stellar checklist for past megastars and Hall of Famers. The images are great, chromium cards, a lot of numbered short printed stuff, great auto checklist. This is just last year's, but just some of the names I have in this SKU that are still left. Scott Rowland, Robin Roberts. They do have some throwback images too that are just really, really cool. Chipper Jones, Ivan Rodriguez, a couple ultra moderns, Edgar Martinez, Randy Johnson, Robin Yount. So like I'm targeting who are the names that people collect, the collectability of the player. And then also, this set is a set that is collectible. People build subsets of this. This is a very common set where people build out rainbows. There are some short print variations where people may be like, it's a different image or a background. But then there's a lot of numbered stuff as well. But this is one that I wouldn't sleep on the Hall of Famers in like a dime or quarter box. I wouldn't be paying 50 cents to $1 for base. You're not going to do well on that. But it is a set that performs well. And the low numbered stuff out of that set could get real sneaky in an eBay auction for you. Whew. That has been an hour of me talking really quickly. If you made it through that, you deserve a reward. I do think there were some nuggets in there for you. Quick reminder, tonight on Whatnot, we will be giving away this Adrian Beltre a $15 to $200 card to a buyer. As always, please like, follow, subscribe. What am I forgetting, Gary? Summoning your presence. Why am I seeing a slushie? I just saw a Sheets taco. I don't know what that means. This has been the Ball Card Show, the sports podcast for the sports collector. Bye now. Peace.